is going on? Welcome to Let's Talk Some Real Estate and Stuff with my man Carlos, and you got Papa P here, and the P is for parks, as in mobile home parks. What's going on, Carlos?
I love that, dude. The P is definitely for parks. I'm good, man. A lot
That's
of uh, a lot of. I was thinking of like updates that I want to tell you before we went live, but this week fasting, like doing straight fasts a lot of the morning, so just really feeling like dialed in during the first half of the day. Good week, productive. Stepped on the scale for the first time this morning, which is an exciting little step. I'm able to put pressure on the left foot, so I'm good, man. I'm
all
pumped
right.
to chat with you today and catch up. What is
It is
going on?
not much. It is just Carlos and I today. John is out, moving up to North Florida. So it is just Carlos and I are going to wrap to you about a couple things. But in the meantime, please like and subscribe down at the bottom on our YouTube, or go to our YouTube and like and subscribe so we can get our viewership up and help the algorithm. We always try to provide you some in real life real estate topics, what's going on in our daily life or in the life of their investor fuse, great CRM, but their customers as well. But anyway, man, not much is going on. I don't even know where to begin. I had this wild ride on Wednesday for my mobile home parks. In fact, I was tweeting about it and on Instagram. I was just saying, like, one thing we talked about last week, I think it's important for syndicators or wholesalers, syndicated, whatever you want to say, investors in general, to show the journey, not just be like, oh, I got this deal, now
Mhm.
give me money. Or, oh, and a lot of it's not give me money. It's more like, oh, look at me, I'm raising money, because everyone feels important when they're like, oh, I'm buying a 235 unit asset I'm involved in. We're raising like couple $1 million for the down payment.
Mhm.
It's like, where's the journey, right? So here's the fucking journey. The one in South Carolina, I'll be up front. I did not get that one from last week. Not that I couldn't. $1 million, 500K down, $3,500 a month payment on a balloon, 0% interest was his final offer. I countered back. I needed it to be at about $2,400 a month. I had some room to wiggle. He wouldn't budge. Kind of left it at like, hey man, like you're asking me to put 50% down. Like my cash on cash isn't that great to begin with. Like I need it down here on the payment, which is still not where I would love to be, but I was making an exception because I like the market.
Mhm.
Long story short. But so then I'm like, okay, I got these two up in North Carolina. They're gonna be fucking gems. All right. And listen, chime in if I'm not giving you the full story, Carlos, okay? You let me know. But I'm leaving. Okay. And I learned some lessons, and you can ask me later about what lessons I learned from this day. But I'm leaving at, I live about 45 minutes with no traffic from Tampa Airport. So I'm leaving at like 4:45 for like a 7 a.m. flight, 5 o'clock, so I could get there, get through security, because security is worse in the morning because everyone flies out.
Mhm.
Um, I wake up, my wife wakes me up, and I'm like, okay, let's fucking go. And I'm already tight booked. I land at 9:30. It's a 2-hour drive to the first park. I'm meeting at 12. I got to rent a car. From there, it's 30 minutes to the next park. I'm meeting that guy at 2 o'clock. I got 25 units or 26 to walk in one, 24 in the other. I'm fucking booked, bro.
Mhm.
Wake up, flight's canceled. I'm like, oh, fuck.
Damn.
They rebooked me on a flight. I'm like, okay, like that's fine because I'm flying back the same day. So I was landing at 9 and then taking off at 6 p.m. to get back to Florida. Now they've delayed my flight. Now I'm not getting in till noon in Charlotte, and I'm like, shit, I was supposed to meet the first park at noon. All right, so like I have to get on the phone at like 4 something with the airlines. I'm like rescheduling my come home
4 in the
flight
morning?
4 in the morning, bro. Like
Sheesh.
legit, because I was, you got to get up, you got to like get on
Yeah.
the road. It's a highway drive, you know what I mean? Like, so I call him. So now I'm leaving Charlotte at 10 p.m. and getting back to Tampa at midnight at this point because of how the day changed. My whole day is fucked.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay. So I go to the flight and I'm like, all right, I will take my first one in the morning and move that behind my 2 p.m. You know what I mean? And now, because I got all this time, I'm swapping things. I'll get there at like 4. I'm like, I'll call the lady. So in the airport, I call the property manager of the 12 o'clock one. She's upset with me because she told all the people that I was going in at noon. Tell her to calm down. I got this under control. As I'm sitting on the plane, on the tarmac, right before I go to airplane mode, want to know what happens, Carlos? No, no,
They told you to put a mask on?
no, I get a phone
Okay.
call.
Oh
I know,
gosh.
bro. That would have been
I
something.
wasn't sure how
I
wild
would
you
like
were on
I would
it.
have thrown some elbows. I get a phone call. It's the seller of the 2 o'clock appointment. He has decided he doesn't want to sell it.
Wow.
So he's like, listen, man. He's like, you said you were looking at another park, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, okay. I don't feel as bad now. He's like, I just got, and mind you, I'm going through a wholesaler, the same wholesaler on both of these. I'm trying to buy a package from two different sellers through a wholesaler. Communication is wide open. He's given me the seller's contact. I don't know the guy, but like we've talked, so I guess he trusts me. I'm not going to screw him over.
That's good.
So that's fine. And I'm sitting in my plane on the tarmac, ready for takeoff. The flight attendant's telling me to get off the phone. And he's like, I've changed my mind and I just don't want to sell it. And I could tell you the story about why, but I go, I'm listening as he's telling me his change of heart. And I'm like, I totally respect and understand where you're coming from. Sir, I can't force you to sell, but I'm sitting on a plane about to take off to come and see you. Would it be okay if we at least met in person at the park so you can just finish explaining this to me? I understand you don't want to sell, and my intention is not to get you to, but I'm coming out there anyway. I'm on a plane.
Mhm.
Let's at least meet. And he goes, I understand that. That's fine. Or you still want to meet? And I said, yes. I should probably be there now around like 2:30. So I'm pushing the appointment back because of like
Mhm.
now my times are all messed up. So he says, okay. So I get there. Bro, it's a beautiful park. I would love this park, but he doesn't want to sell it. And he hasn't told the wholesaler yet, or so I thought. So I get there and he tells me about his son. His son inherited money from or not inherited, won a lawsuit, got money. So he doesn't need to sell this park anymore because his son, who's 19, listen, bro, like this is a whole other thing we could go off on a tangent on, but his 19-year-old son who got kicked out of the, not kicked out, discharged, not dishonorably, but who got discharged from the Marines, all kinds of troublemaking, has now inherited, I don't know, like it sounded like maybe close to 1 million, maybe in the
Oh,
multiple
wow.
six figures, like a lot of money. He didn't
Mhm.
specifically say, but he kind of like hinted at it, so I'm not sure. But now he was going to sell this park, take my 250 down payment, and go buy another little mini park because he's old and he's like in his 60s. His health is not good, and he didn't want to deal with all park owned units. The service calls were wearing him down. So now he's going to take his son's money, buy that park, and let his son have all of it and run it all for him, aka with him. His 19-year-old son, who was discharged from the Marines and has yet to like do anything with his life, is now inheriting a multiple parks that is going to churn quite a bit of revenue. And this kid doesn't want to do it, mind you, right? Like this is the dad. So I come to find out, he then explains to me how he made his son go into the military. That didn't stick. He only stayed in 1 year before he got out of the Marines
I
somehow.
was
And
gonna
it's
say
not
if he's
easy.
19, he could have been in there that long.
No, and he's like, I thought that was going to do it if he stayed his whole 4, but he didn't, and now he's out, and he's something for him to do. So I told him to do this, and like I said, you could have all this if you just do. You know what it sounds like? Like a dad forcing his kid to do what
Yeah.
he wants him to do, not what the kid wants. Anyway, so I'm out there. He wouldn't let me inside any of the units. We stood out in the fucking sun for like ever as he's just telling me stories about his son. I listened to everything about all the mistakes his son made and how great his son is. You know what I mean? And I get it. I'm a dad too. Like, you really want your son to like turn out the way you turned out? Anyway, so that was that, man. Like, it's a beautiful park, Carlos. Beautiful park.
And then
Very
what
tough.
about the? And then how did the appointment? So you had that one, but then you had the one with the woman, right? That you had to
Hmm.
reschedule.
So I rescheduled that one. Mind you, I don't know if I told you, but they rented me. You know what car they rented me?
Well, I saw that. I
You
saw
saw
on
it?
the IG feed. Yeah,
I'm
I was looking at
driving
the.
a white Chrysler Pacifica minivan.
That
You
thing looked
go,
fresh. That thing looked like kind of fresh though. Like the shape of it, like on the
oh
back
yeah,
end,
it
looked
was
like
like
it was
I was
like pretty
riding a fucking
sleek.
spaceship. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
basically in a spacecraft,
yeah.
riding this fucking thing down the highway, just this metal tube of awesomeness. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, yeah, pulling up to buy $1 million parks. in a fucking, but they knew I flew in, so they knew it wasn't my car. I was hoping.
Yeah.
So like they're like, okay, this guy's it's a rental, but not the ideal. Like a truck would have been, which is what we had rented, but they just didn't have any. So if you're ever renting from the company Sixt, don't. They're horrible. The one guy said, because the guy next to me is like, I have a reservation. He goes, I don't have any cars available. And the guy's like, but I have a reservation. I booked in advance for a rental car. He goes, what do you want me to do? Manufacture a car out of thin
Oh
air?
my god.
The guy's like, are you kidding me? He's like, I don't have any cars for you. You're going to have to wait. And he's like, well, can I get my money back? And he goes, yeah, you're going to have to go back to wherever you booked it and ask them for your money back. And the guy's like, what? He just walked away. So when my girl offered me a minivan, you know what I said? I was like, please and thank you.
Yeah.
I was like,
I'm happy with it.
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy to
As
have
you're,
a
al- as
vehicle.
you're already on the phone at 4 a.m. that morning, rescheduling stuff on the plane, on the tarmac, rescheduling meetings,
Yeah,
telling a guy telling he doesn't want to sell here in the backstory of your son. You're like, you know what? I'll just take this.
yeah, dude. It was wild, and I don't know. I mean, so anyway, like at this point, it's now like 3 o'clock, and the people had told me I had till 5 to go through the other 26 units at this other part because that was what they sent out to the tenants for access.
For you, the main thing, are you looking at the condition of each individual unit to make sure that your like offer is legit? Is that essentially like the main reason you're looking at the like going in person to see it? I know there's a
Two
few
th-
things probably,
two
but
things, two things. Yeah, I wanted to make sure. With my experience, I feel like I'm pretty good with estimating just because of my
mhm.
background. But we're talking a lot of money, and I needed to get my eyes on. From all the other ones I've walked, owners tend to exaggerate their condition because it's their babies, these mom and pops. We're talking mom and pops, right?
Mhm.
Not corporate owned. So yeah, I wanted to do that, and then 3 or 2, when I hadn't signed with the wholesaler yet, and I told him I needed to see him. I have to go raise money. If I'm asking you for half a million, quarter mil, whatever it is, and I don't have photos of any of the units, it's going to be a tough sell for my raise. It'd be like, trust me, give me 400K to buy this park and do the rehab, but I can't show you what any of these things look like. I need to
Mhm.
get into as many of them, be able to put together a proper CapEx budget as part of my offering memorandum when I'm trying to syndicate and raise money. The first one I bought from Tyler was a wild, wild west one. I don't think I could ever do that again, where I just like winged it without getting into any of the units.
Mhm.
That was a unicorn type of deal. It was a phenomenal deal. I thank Tyler every time I talk to him for selling me that park. Um, so that's the reasons why mostly. Like I got to get my eyes on them, and then they had no photos to give me. The wholesaler, like it's so different wholesaling these parks, like because they're bringing me in as like their partner, like their money, like their money guy, the operator of the deal. Um, so it's not like they sent someone to take photos first because a lot of times you can't. The owners don't want you getting into every single unit multiple times.
Mhm.
So the wholesaler's hoping to find an operator and then say, okay, now go look at them. Um, so I had nothing to go off of other than aerials, Google Street View, and what the due diligence docs they sent me were.
Mhm.
Okay. So anyway, I call this realtor. I'm heading back now. Mind you, I haven't eaten shit. Like I'm just worn the fuck out at this point. And she sends me to this little small town in North Carolina called Laurinburg. Um, and I roll in and this is the property manager. And to give you a backstory, the seller's in Texas, hasn't seen this park supposedly in a long time, bought it in like 14. She's been running it, put 60K in CapEx in the roads and bought some newer units and dropped them on. And the property manager is phenomenal. Just taking care of everything for him. He doesn't have to worry about a thing. They got a couple evictions and rehabs going. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, like 26 units. There's a couple vacant, some burned. I'm like, okay, I can flip those, rehab them. Like, how bad could they be, right? I go to the lady and I'm like, are you going to meet me out there? And she goes, no, you could come pick up the keys. Red flag one. I'm like, oh, so you're not going to walk the units with me or show me the park? She's like, no, I'm busy, but you can get the keys and I've let everyone know you're going through. Okay, that's fine. I'll go get the keys. So I go to her office, pick up the keys. On the way, I'm
Mhm.
starving. So I stop at this place called Jesse Subs. Little side story. Jesse Subs, hot and fast is what the sign said. I'm like, how can I fucking go wrong on this?
That
I
sounds
walk
good.
in. I walk in. It's an Asian guy. I look at the menu and I go, hey man, like what can you make me that's fast? And he points up at the menu. He goes, well, any of this is fast, like a sandwich. I look up at the menu. He's serving spaghetti, meatballs. He's got, bro, I'm not kidding you, spaghetti, meatballs, a list of deli sandwiches, hot subs, meatball subs too, meatball
Oh, I was
subs.
gonna say, I hope he had
Then,
like meatball,
but
chicken farm sub stuff
but
type
wait,
stuff.
he did. And then on another menu, he had Chinese food. And
That
then
is
I
a
said,
crazy
what's the
place.
fast? It is. And I said, what's the fastest thing you can make me? He goes, a hot dog? I'm like, you got hot dogs too, man? And I just laughed and he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, okay. And I was like, can I just get a chicken sub? He's like, yeah. He goes, what do you want on it? I'm like, well, what do you put on it? He's like, well, we got this special sauce we'll put on it and like tomatoes and lettuce. I'm like, sounds good.
Mm.
Do you know what the special sauce was?
Poblano sauce, something crazy like that.
Wet mayonnaise. And now you
Mm.
may be thinking, Carlos, mayonnaise is wet, Brandon.
I
So
do
what do you
like
mean
mayonnaise
wet?
too.
Wet mayonnaise. And when I say wet mayonnaise, I mean a watered down mayo that when you bite into it, the water has separated from the mayo and it's just watered down mayo. I don't know
What
what
kind of chicken was it? Like it was like a crispy
it
cutlet
was.
or like
No,
a deli
it was
slice,
just a
grilled breast or something like
grilled breast sandwich with wet mayonnaise on it
that. Ugh.
on a white bun with the shredded lettuce and a chunk, not a slice, but chunks of tomato. So I ate one half and I put the other half, I rolled it up and I said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to pay the price for this later. So I go down to the park. Anyway, dude, I'm sorry. I had to say that because I
No,
was thinking about how funny it was that this place is Jesse's Subs and it's like an Asian place that serves Italian food, American burgers and hot dogs, and then Chinese food.
that
And
is
like
a
it's
hell of a story. And you know what's funny enough that you bring that up? That was like one of the random thoughts when I was like watching your story. I guess it was a couple days ago. I literally was wondering. I'm like, I wonder. Like a random thought. I was like, I wonder like Brand's like getting to like eat tonight. Like he's like, I know
no,
you're going back the same day, but I'm like, I wonder what he's like eating out there. That was a random thought I had. So
that
it's
was
funny
what
that
I
you brought
was
that up.
eating. I was planning
That
on
is
like, let me
funny.
find something. There was nothing in this small little podunk town. Anyway, so like here's my problem, and like we could touch on a couple of the red flags about this manager and talk about the difference with like managing this asset long distance for this guy. But I went to the park and her first thing, and listen, I got so much experience with realtors. I used to have a brokerage. You
Mhm.
know, I've been a broker and a realtor for like over a decade. And I knew right away the type of realtor I was dealing with. And she goes, have you been to this area before? And I go, no, you don't know what you're getting into. And I'm like, and so immediately I understood we're talking race at this point. And it's
Mhm.
illegal for a realtor to say anything about that. So I go, oh, you mean the demographic? And she goes, yeah, and what goes on in the area. So I said, it's that type of demographic. And she goes, yeah, it's one of those where you don't want to go after dark. And I'm like, I was like, okay, great. I was like, no worries. Like, I'll be fine. It's daylight out. So immediately you got this 60-year-old lady who's wearing jewelry, managing a 26 unit mobile home park, not who you would imagine to manage a mobile home park.
Mhm.
So immediately I'm like, fuck, dude. Like, this park's, I knew at that moment this park was fucked. And I roll into it. And as I'm driving up, there's a new parks must have just got bought out down the road. It looks beautiful. Got the fucking waving signs in the air about new management, leasing, open units. And I'm looking as I'm driving, like, this is a nice park. Like, wow, they really like it's probably like 60, 70 unit park. And like, okay, like that's my competition. As I'm driving down, I like roll up to like mine or what's gonna be mine. And I'm like, holy fuck. Bro, the 60K he spent on roads, I don't know where that money went, but potholes everywhere. Like I'm driving
Mhm.
this minivan and I'm dodging fucking potholes like I'm fucking in a fucking race. It was horrible. So anyway, I roll up and I go and I'm like, okay, so she drew me out a little map. Like I have this little map over here that she drew out for me. Seeing if I could find it for my audience here. But she gave me this little map, and so I'm like, okay, like let me do it. Here's my map. The yellow's highlighted. Everything else is vacant. 26 units. When they got the paperwork from the guy, the wholesaler, it was 14 units occupied. The rest were vacant. When I went, now only 10 are occupied. It keeps declining, right? in occupancy. He was making about 8K when they first got the paperwork, 7,700 or change, and now it's barely making 6K a month. So you could see like what's happening. And I go down to the first one on the map over here, and I go into this one. And it's like, okay, this isn't so bad. And I notice like the floors and shit are bad, and like there's holes in the wall, and like you start to see shit like the patio, like the front porch is rotting. I'm like, okay. I go into the next one, bro. I don't know if you watched my story, but like I fell through the floor. Like I'm walking through this thing, there's no
Oh,
lights
God.
on because a lot of the lights don't work, because the consensus I got was Jeff, the handyman, was supposed to come and fix it, said he was coming back and never came back. And that was what everyone kept telling me. Well, Jeff said he was coming back for it. So I go into this lady's bedroom and she's guiding me through this mobile in the dark, just the
Sheesh.
fucking dark, because they don't have lights. She's got the stove on, like cooking for her two little kids. They're watching TV, and I'm walking through in the fucking pitch black as I'm trying to make a video. And I go around her bed as she goes to the closet to show me something, and I just sink. The subfloor has rotted out. What has kept me from falling to the ground was the carpet. The carpet gave under my feet and bungeed me as I grabbed onto the bed and pulled
Oh, my
myself back up. And she goes, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you about that.
God.
Jeff said he was going to fix it and hasn't come back yet." I'm like, "Oh, Jeff, thanks, Jeff.
Jeff,
I
if you're
appreciate
watching
you."
this,
Yeah, fuck you, Jeff. Thanks, bro.
you.
So she shows me in the closet there's no light, and she goes, "Look in there." And so I get the video up, and you can see daylight. The floors are rotted out underneath the water heater in the back closet. Like water heaters and mobiles are usually tucked in like a cavity behind the one closet or in between rooms. So she shows me, like, holy fuck. So then she brings me into the bathroom, and she's like, "Take a look." She shows me down the drain, sunlight. She's showering, and the water is just draining underneath the mobile. It's
Oh,
not
gosh.
connected because the sewer pipes have rotted out. The galvanized piping that connects to the drain is rotted out. And you know what she said? Take a guess.
Jeff was supposed to fix
Jeff
it?
was, Jeff was going to fix it. Jeff said he was coming back to fix it. Jeff hasn't fixed it yet.
Jeff, let
Anyway,
us down.
I go to the next one. Same story. Like, and it's just
What
wild.
what condition were you expecting them in though? Like livable, not like, you know,
I
falling
wasn't
through the
Yeah,
floor.
I was expecting not nice, maintained that I make nice. Like the park I bought, they're they're hodgepodge together, but they're maintained.
Mhm.
Like if there's a rotting floor, he replaced the subfloor type of shit. Like he patched the walls and he actually patched them. Do you know how they patched the walls? Do you know what Jeff did? Here's
Mm-mm.
what Jeff did. If you had a patch, if you had a hole, he would cut a little square like this out of wood or some other substance, stick it on top of the wall, and drill 4 screws into it and then paint over it. So
Oh my
all through,
gosh.
literally all through the home, it's like fucking like one of those like geometric shape games where like one door had like one up here, a big one down here, and you just see the screws, and he just painted over them to match the door color. Same thing on the wall. They're not. That's what I'm talking about. Like the level of giving a fuck. I went into the one lady's place, 4 different floors, all converging at different points, because instead of replacing the floors, they're just like patching them and throwing down like tack strips, or not tack strip, like threshold strips.
Mhm.
In another unit, he apparently didn't want to use threshold strips. And the lady's showing me they're just using a staple gun. There's just staples. The guy literally stapled at the seams. Like imagine walking barefoot through your fucking house
Oh, no, not in
and you're
there.
just stepping on fucking staples, bro.
Not in there. God knows what's gonna happen if you walk barefoot in
Super
those
glue.
houses.
Super glue was another thing at the one bathroom where the 2 pieces of floor met. It was just super glue. So when you touched it, it was like all like, kind of smooth and shiny and shit. And I'm like,
Mhm.
motherfucker, glued it. Scotch tape was another one. Just fucking
Goodness
packaging
gracious.
tape. It was not Scotch tape. What do you call it? Like the packaging tape. You know what I mean? Like that long,
Yeah.
the thick, clear. So like I'm going through the fucking units, and I get to this one that's like decently nice. It's this kid down at the end who was waiting for me as I was going through because he wasn't there, and he goes, "Hey man, you want to come through mine?" And I'm like, I'm like, yeah, bro, like I'll come through it. And he goes, they tell me, and I walk through, I'm like, oh, that's not bad. He goes, they tell me I got the nicest unit, and I just started
Oh
busting.
God.
At this point, I busted out laughing because this was at the end. I'm skipping ahead. I've seen all 13 or 10 vacant occupied units, and I
Yeah.
just bust out laughing. I go, bro, yes. I was like, yes, you have the nicest unit in this park, and I've seen every one of them today. I go, I can 100% assure you, you have the nicest fucking unit, bro. And he was so proud. He was like,
Yeah.
awesome. Um, I walked in another one, wasn't even finished. The lady was embarrassed. She was like, I am so embarrassed to show you this, but Jeff said he was coming to fix this and they haven't fixed it. There's no carpet in some areas. The walls, like one of the walls is like caved in, not caved as in collapsing, but the dry, pushed in. And I can go on with these stories, right? And yes, they were all black people, African American, none of them. So I don't know what the realtor was talking about. They were all nice, sweet. They just wanted a good place to live. They all, and take it with a grain of salt, they all said that they handed paperwork in for their repairs. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But it's up to the realtor to be maintaining these units as a property manager and walking them. And bro, like the one lady showed me out back, she's like, my son fell through the porch the other day or the other week or whatever it was. And she showed me the entire back deck collapsed in from rotting wood. No one cleaned it
Sheesh.
up, just rotting, just sitting out there rotting away, collapsed, a safety hazard, liability for the owner, dogs chained out. The realtor had told me she had done an eviction and there's still a dog there. And she
Jesus.
pretty sure that the owner was coming back for the dog. I go out there, the dog, oh fuck. I was supposed to call animal control. Write myself a note. Sorry
Let's
about
call him
that,
up.
guys.
Dude, you're
Let me
good.
just call him up right now. No, I'm putting
Yeah.
it down. I'm going to call animal control because the dog was skin and bones chained to the ground out back
That's
of this
awful.
evicted unit. And that's the first thing you do when you do an eviction is you call animal control. You get rid of that animal and it's the owner's job to go pick up the dog. So this manager has run this property into the ground. And at this point, what happens in parks is probably because she's scared to go out there. Probably because she's this old lady who just doesn't do any of the work herself, doesn't want to meet these people. She doesn't obviously think very highly of her tenants or like them the way she
Mhm.
had talked to me about it. So you got one handyman. I mean, he's got now 6 grand of monthly cash flow. That's not enough to turn a unit over. So, especially in these conditions, so they're going to try to patch him again. And then what happens is as he burns through and he needs a check to pay his mortgage, the loan that he got on these newer units, which are all trashed and dilapidated and sitting vacant. And the one thing about the vacant units is the mowing. They stop mowing around them. So it's
I
almost
saw
like
that. I saw
Earth,
that post where everyone
Earth
was
had
just
taken
like,
them. Yeah, Earth
yeah.
had taken them back into the woods, just like sucked it back in,
I
like
saw
a
that.
horror movie. And I was like, they didn't board up. So like where I was thinking, Carlos, to answer your earlier question on the vacant units and burned units, I figured like, okay, they're burned. It's a shell. I can rebuild this shell. But they didn't board up the windows that got blown out or the doors. They just left them open and now they're completely. I tried to see in one, just completely mold and rotted. Just like all the everything's just laying there in piles of rubble. They didn't they didn't hire a clean out crew. They didn't board it up. They didn't secure the asset. They're not mowing around it to keep up the appearance. Like they're not doing anything. They've literally just let the weeds grow around it. And the mower now just forgot about it. So now you're losing lots at this point. Like not losing them because you still have something on them, but you're losing the size of your park and you're losing your ability to be able to rehab them at this point because they're just now of no value. You're just
Mhm.
going to demo them and put in a new unit at this point. And it's like, so now you have this thing, and this becomes one of those trailer parks that people talk about where like trailer parks are bad because of people like this. You have an out of town owner trusting a property manager, has no idea that managing a park is much different than a single family house or a duplex or even an apartment. It's a much different hands on operation, especially with park owned units, right? It's essentially handling 26 individual houses, right? Like it's a lot to do in one area. Your one client is giving you 26 houses. It's a lot different than one client handing you one house. So anyway, it's like, what do you do? And so I got a call with the guy at 3:30 today with the wholesaler. We're going to get on a group call, and he wants 750. And it's not worth 750. He's got a loan on it of like, I don't know what it is, 250 payoff maybe for these new units supposedly he got when he bought the park. But these units that are back here with these are all, see, they're not highlighted. They're just sitting vacant.
Like 16 vacant and 10 are occupied, something like that.
16 vacant, but I think he got one, two, three, four units that were newer that he took the loan out on or something like that. When he bought the park, he dropped some units, is what the story is from the wholesaler. And he's like, how are those? And I told the wholesaler, I'm like, bro, just forget about them. Like, I didn't get into them. I ran out of time. Like, and at this point, I was just so pissed. I was so angry for this guy at the property manager that this guy had lost. He's an old man who, like, this, this is his shit. Like, you just ruined his asset. And I went into a couple of the evictions, and like she had told me that the one eviction had just happened recently. Cobwebs covered inside. I was pulling, that
I hate
feeling.
that. Oh,
Yeah.
worst
And
feeling.
I'm just swearing. I'm like, how the fuck was this just evicted if this place is covered in cotton? So that's the story she's telling him. Meanwhile, it's sitting vacant probably because she can't handle the rehab, hire the demo crew. She's probably waiting on her one Jeff guy to do
Yeah.
shit, and he's not doing it. And she's just letting these assets sit and fucking rot away. And then there's not enough money to turn it. And this guy probably doesn't have the capital to put capital improvement money in. So he's probably like, just use the rent money. $5,000 isn't enough to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vacants that are supposed to be in rehab mode. How are you rehabbing 6 vacant units with $6,000 a month in cash flow?
Mhm. Do you have an idea of where you need to be at in like
Yeah.
acquisition costs for that to even make sense?
So what I'm going to talk to him about, like I had originally thought about, like, I mean, my offer is going to be probably in like the 250, 260 range what he owes, and I'm
Just
actually
to
going
get
to
him
try.
out of it.
And I don't want the park. I'll take it because obviously if I turn it around, or when I turn it around, it'll be worth a shit ton of money. I'm going to actually offer to take over the mortgage and then have a delayed payment of some kind to him, while I put all of my money into, instead of bringing 250 to pay him, or through the down payment was 275. I had estimated 200K originally in capex. I believe my capex budget is damn near triple that because it's
Damn.
roads, it's now piping. That I think if the galvanized pipes rotted out there, I'm going to assume that it's in other areas too. I can already tell you every deck needs to be redone. They're all rotting. The steps, I almost killed myself on one of them. Like, I mean, it's atrocious, dude. Like, so you're talking front deck, back deck of 20 some units.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got to drop new units on 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 4 burn ones all need to be removed with new units dropped. So I'm in 40K a piece there. So that's 160K minimum. The roads are trash, like potholes all up here. And then because these are all vacant, this road has disappeared. This road here, like I said, the lawnmower stopped mowing here. So these people drive up here. This guy comes up this way. This whole half of the park has been forgotten about. So all that money he put into his roads, gone. 60K
Yeah.
of supposed capex improvement when he bought it, ruined. So
Did the
now,
I was just gonna say really quick. I'm
yeah,
curious that how I wonder how there's so much disconnect from like the wholesaler that you're working with and potentially the owner thinking they'd be able to sell it for 750K versus like what anybody would even want to pay them for this. Like this guy
here's
should be begging to take it off of somebody's
he
hand.
doesn't. I don't think he knows. When I was on the phone with him, me and the wholesaler were on a call with this guy Saturday before I went out to the park. Um, Bro, his realtor could do no wrong. She's phenomenal. He has found the best realtor in the area. She takes care of everything for him. She has multiple rehabs going. These evictions are going to be rented out. She has multiple applications for them when the rehabs are done. You see what I'm saying? It's
Mhm.
not hard for a realtor to keep making plausible excuses that are pretty hard to deny. Like, okay, she's waiting on this. Well, her handymen are doing this. Well, they got delayed because of this. And guess what? 1 month turns into 2 months, turns into 3 months. You kind of forget about that. A new problem arises. These things happen and they become very plausible. The only way this guy would know is if he went out there. I mean, he's going to see his.
He's in for a rude awakening on the 3:30 call then.
Yeah, unless he knows and he lied. That's the other plausible.
Yeah.
Buyers
there
are
just
liars,
seems like
sellers
way
are
too much
liars.
disconnect here. Even like I feel like that doesn't even happen as often with single family stuff. But I guess
like,
it happens like multifamily or when it's 20 something units at one place.
So take a look at this. Like, what if these units burned and I know about it as the owner, and I say, hey, Carlos, do me a favor, go secure them, board them up, and all that. I charge you for it, and I never do it. And I tell you, and you assume I do it. You see the charge, you assume I do it. Unless you go visit the park, how are you going to know those were boarded up or left open?
Like photo or video evidence.
If he's not asking that,
exactly,
because he trusts the property manager.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I've managed a property for we did a little bit of property management for other people before I realized what a fucking ripoff it is of time for me. They would trust me. They never asked me for photos when I would say, hey, we're replacing a dishwasher. They didn't say, send me a photo of the new dishwasher when you send the bill.
Mm-hmm.
They would just say, cool, take it out of the rent. And I did, complete trust. And I earned that trust, obviously, right? But here you have the same thing. I was listening to a podcast with Ryan Norris, Mobile Home Parks in Real Life, and he had interviewed a guy who had the same situation. He had given his parks up to a property manager in the area, and they had been making all of these excuses, and he said they were so believable, I had no reason to question them. It wasn't until I went to my park and started talking to tenants that I realized, and I started looking at my bills, and I started noticing I was getting invoices for things that weren't done. I was getting invoices for their other properties they were managing. They were tacking them onto my account, and I didn't know because it didn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of this you don't know, which is why I'm very grateful that I was a part of Tim Bratz's mastermind, Commercial Empire. And I asked people about property management, and every one of them all coached me into doing it myself. I heard horror story after horror story. They just advised me to do it myself. And that's why I did it myself instead of hiring a management company.
Mm-hmm. So. That's wild. I guess I'm used to the app Simple Crew. Just on that, if you're familiar, are you familiar with Simple Crew? Have you heard of that?
No.
So it's one of the friends, the other co-founder of InvestorFuse, one of his buddies made an app for pretty much real estate people use it for putting up bandit signs. So you would hire somebody to put up bandit signs, and you take a picture of each one. So if you hire somebody off Craigslist like we did, you could literally see time-stamped and the picture on a map of where they put it. So I guess I just have not PTSD,
and that's how it is.
Awareness, because it's easy to set up,
So I come from the REO industry back in the day, right? So when you used to do REO work, it was asset management for the bank. So you were actually a field worker for the bank. You were their agent, but you had to manage. You were like a contractor for them, essentially. You were doing bids, getting bids, hiring people, even sometimes footing the bill, getting reimbursed. In order to get paid for anything you did a long cut, anything, you had to upload photos with timestamps. Mm-hmm. And then once they got that, the photos timestamped with the invoice and a copy of the check you wrote to the landscape company, they then reimbursed you. I mean, I would rack up 40 to 50K worth of bills across all of the banks I worked for, waiting for reimbursements. And the one thing was pictures. You had to have pictures. So I made all my vendors send me photos.
That's wild. I would not want to have that much reimbursement out of my personal for working for banks. That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was just part of how it was back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. So I'm going to talk to him. I feel bad. I don't necessarily want the part. If it becomes an offer that I can't refuse, then yes. But I'm talking $500,000 in capital expenditures easily.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the septics haven't been taken care of in years.
Which he thinks that's all his profit. It sounds like he was expecting if he was looking to sell it for $750 or something like that.
And you $750 on seller finance. He paid. It looks like $300K for the park back in 2014, which is what I thought the loan was for. But then the wholesaler said no, it was for units he brought in. So I don't have the full story because I'm going through a wholesaler. But from what I found on county records, he paid $300K in 2014 for this park. So, I mean, yeah. But I got one the other day, yesterday in Illinois, from a wholesaler. The guy bought it for $495 and is letting it go for in the 300s. $395 with the wholesaler fee, so you figure probably $350. Why? Mismanaged, out of town owner, property management went to shit. The guy's willing to take a loss on it just to get rid of it. It's a theme because people come into parks thinking you can manage these things from afar with a realtor manager. Bro, it's belly to belly with these motherfuckers. Like you better come with
Passive income.
it's not passive in park owned
Yeah.
homes. So you better come with like a flipper background. And you with the flipper, like, and that's why I think I'm really good at it is because of my background.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't mind going to belly with these guys, like being out on site inside the units, talking to the people. They were great tenants. I would love to give them a nice place to live. But like, the realtor doesn't think they're nice and is afraid of them and doesn't go there, so doesn't go inside. I don't know how you could go inside any one of your tenants' units and see that and not say, holy fuck, I'm doing a shitty job. I need to fix the
Yeah.
units up.
Yeah. Well, she's probably just blaming the tenants for her lack of quality work.
And again, I bet you he doesn't know. So I figure if I could get the guy to let me assume his loan, make those payments, pay no cash to him up front, use all my cash for the improvement, and then maybe within like when I sell, he gets a certain piece of that, I would do that. Am I willing to give him money up front to take on this asset? And then like, I'm not going to give him, it's not worth, it's literally only worth like 200 some K. The value is in the land itself and the fact that I'm zoned for, and I still have to verify my zoning, but I'm zoned for this many lots. The value is not in that you have mobile homes that have any value. The mobile homes are of no value in my mind. I literally have to re-subfloor all of these things, refloor them, new bathrooms, toilets, vanities. Like there's just going to be full-on rehabs in all of these motherfuckers.
You would have to be up there. Like if you're doing full rehabs, like you would pretty much move up there, right? Like at least like a short term, like I get an Airbnb for like a couple months.
So I have like what I would do is there's like two of them that I looked at that weren't half bad. I would hire a handy. I would either bring one of my crews from Florida there and have them live on site or pay them and start turning units over, or I would do one at a time. I would find a handyman to do one of the units, see if he's a good handyman, and try to hire another one to do another one. And you know what I mean? Start piecemealing. And then once I found them on the good ones, I would start rolling them into the rest. And I'd be delivering materials. But yeah, I'd be up at the park for weeks at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably be camping out.
Eating at Fast Eddie's or getting food from what's a sub shop.
No, I thought about this. Like, I was like, how would I do this? I was like, bro, like, I think I would get a tent and I would get a little campfire stove and I would just like camp out in the park. I feel like I would just go camp status.
Like baked beans, hot dogs.
Bro, like, yeah, like, why not? Like, how cool would that be? I thought about like how I would do it. And I was like, man, I'd just go live in the park. Like if I could get one unit ready, I'd live in that. If not, like I would live in a tent on a cot and a sleeping bag with a little campfire and just fucking like post up and every day wake up and do my fucking work and have my mobile hotspot.
Yeah, dude, you can do it. And then what about the Illinois one? Is that where it was? Illinois, Iowa was the other one?
I don't know. I'm looking at that one, but there's no seller finance on it.
Is that kind of just like a figure it out? Like if you were to able to lock up a deal there, you would just like figure it out like.
So no, I don't think so. I don't know if I'm going to buy in Illinois, but a wholesaler sent it to me because I'm on Facebook now messaging everyone for parks. And so I wanted to see the deal. The more I can underwrite, the better.
Yeah.
But like I have a couple in Illinois, Kansas, Oklahoma, Indiana, and another one in Arkansas, another one in Illinois, and another one in Illinois. I'm just looking at as many deals as possible. Yeah.
I love that.
So it sucks, dude. So I'll deliver that news at 3:30 to this guy and see what he says.
Yeah, dude. I think he's in for a rude. He has to be in for a pretty.
I'm gonna send him all my photos and videos.
Yeah, he's got to be in a rude awakening. That lady might get fired, or I don't know. Maybe he's willing to let it go cheap. Who knows?
So I meant to tell you when I woke up at 4, the SUV had a flat tire.
Jeez.
So not at 4. When I woke back up at 7 to get 6 or whatever to get my flight. My SUV had a flat tire. So I had to actually borrow my mom's car because we didn't have another car. So I borrowed my mom's car to go to the airport while she got the tire fixed on the other one. If my flight didn't get delayed, I would have been fucked. Because at 4 a.m., I would have hopped on the road without looking in the pitch black. I might have realized I had a flat. What was I going to do? pull off to the side of the road, change a tire. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
things happen for a reason that day.
they
It
do.
was a wild
Everything happens for a
occurrence.
reason.
So
Everything happens for a reason. Well, dude, that's crazy. Let us know. I guess we'll have that for next week queued up. What happens with this guy here? But yeah, man, everything happens for a reason.
yeah, wildness. But what's going on in your world, bro? That was my week. That was what I was doing.
Dude, I wish I had something a little bit more exciting for you, but really just working this week. Definitely having some good meetings with customers, some high end, high volume customers.
Yeah.
One theme that we can kind of end on, one of the
What?
things we can end on, then we can do some pulse of the weeks too, because I know we got,
A lot of
I
shit
guess,
going on in the
somewhat,
world.
yeah, a lot of shit going on with the market, even the stock market, real estate market, political stuff is going on, so we can kind of use that. But on the real estate SaaS side of things, two things I'm noticing are people are getting told in masterminds by their mentors that this is a time to really spend quality phone call time with your best leads, like following up with leads, taking good notes, really building rapport. A lot of operators are getting back into the acquisition seat. I'm kind of seeing from a high level, which is interesting. And
That's
I don't
interesting.
know, maybe stuff just isn't as moving as much. Like people don't want to sell if they have a good mortgage rate on their house. With
I
already the
believe it.
inventory was low. So that's one thing I'm seeing is like kind of like operators like getting back into the acquisition role, calling leads, which suits well for us because you want to be organized with your leads and be able to take good notes and follow up with everybody. So that, and then we'll see next week because what day is it? Um, we don't want to take too much or bash anybody that's texting by any means, but we do want to be informative for you guys. So that is something that is going on where in general carriers are
Oh yeah,
blocking
texting's
cold
gonna be dead.
text. Yeah, carriers are blocking more tech stuff, so we'll
I
see
gotta
what happens
see.
to that
We
next
gotta
week.
see if we could get Jordan on. I meant to ask him from smartphone because I don't think I think there's some certain requirements for it, but like I think there's a certain volume that's required for your like I register your requirement to register your campaign. I did that smartphone as a setup where you could go through and do that. But I
Mhm.
also don't think you need to build an actual campaign if you're below a certain volume. I don't actually know. I would love to kind of hear from somebody in that part of the business. But I think
Same.
there's going to be some stuff, man. I think it's a great time going back on what you said to get back on the phones. Like that's what I've done.
Hmm.
You know, with mobile home parks, I was talking to someone the other day. They were asking me about like what I'm doing, and I just told them. They're like, "Oh, you're on the phone." I'm like, "Yeah." Like, who else is going to call these parks? Like, I am doing. You know, I'm taking my notes. I'm updating the statuses. I'm going through my Excel list. I'm cleaning my data. I'm doing all of this because it's all new for me. So like,
Hmm.
I'm figuring it all out. But like, I think it's an important time to go back. We canceled a deal on a piece of land, right? We got a piece of land under contract in Dallas and we had to back out of it. So the seller had called me while I was in the airport the other day. A lot of calls in the airport on Wednesday. The seller called me complaining, like, why are you canceling? Da 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 da. And I told her, I said, well, you know, the economy is getting bad. I was like, interest rates went up after, you know, right when you had signed the contract, and building is slowing down for us in that area, and so we can't take down your piece of land, right? Obviously. She goes, I believe it. I understand where you're coming from, and I'm like, oh, that was a surprise. And she goes, I just had to drop 75 grand on my house that we were selling in blah, blah, blah town. And I'm like, really? She goes, the realtor said this thing would sell. We had so many people go to our open house and so many people coming through for showings and no offers. And then we dropped 20 grand. And we had more people telling us what a beautiful house it was. No offers. And then
Hmm.
we dropped another 20 grand. And then we got a contract. But then inspections came back. And then they had to drop like another 30 or 40K, she said. She was like, when it was all done, we had like 75,000. It took an extra like blah, blah, blah months of her. Because I remember talking to her back in the beginning of the year about them selling their house in Texas somewhere. And so when I had told her that we couldn't buy this land because by the time if she would have signed this motherfucker back in like January, February when I first called her, we could have had her $5,000 lot fucking wholesaled off fast. But when
Hmm.
you don't sign the contract and go back and forth for 6 months with me, and you don't sign it until July when interest rates go up to like 7%, and
Yeah.
people are like, oh shit, there's a problem. So yeah, she took a 75K haircut on her home. And she said she's noticing the difference. And she's talked to other people that were selling at the time. And the realtor was saying, it's getting tougher and tougher for houses to move as fast as they did with interest rates the way that they are.
Crazy.
I don't think that's
And it's
true in every market, though. But
no, I don't think so. But and it's also crazy just the economy of investing and the real estate market and how like one thing affects everything else. You know,
yeah,
it's fascinating. And that's why we always this is a weekly show, so that's why it comes up every week. Um, yeah, that is fascinating, man. We'll see what happens if interest rates go up again this year, or what's going to happen with the economy, the world, politics, election year, or we're within 1 year of being a election year.
it's gonna get wild. I mean,
It's going to get wild.
I definitely think we're going to see a huge decline in the stock market and the housing market. Um, I think I don't think there's going to be a problem for wholesalers, especially if you're novating, if you're doing these different things. I think you could definitely still make money doing what we do. I think there's going to be an abundance of deals out there. I think deals will still move, but you got to reset pricing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wild. Like, so the lady, when I was on the phone, she goes, "You youngins are spoiled." When we bought this is the common thing. When we bought our house in 1980, whatever, interest rates were like 16% or whatever. And I didn't argue with her, but my response in my mind was, yeah, but house prices were like 100 grand.
Mm-hmm.
But when interest rates go to 3%, house prices jump 60% in a year. And now interest rates are at 77% and the prices haven't gone down. You have a discrepancy as to why
Mm-hmm.
people can't afford them. I was like, you had a balanced high interest rate and low house price.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we have a high interest rate and a high house price still. This needs to come down. And, I think that's going to happen, man. I definitely see that happening. I see
House
parts.
prices going down.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
100%. I was talking to somebody, so
Like a
I'm
this year thing.
yeah, oh, yeah. I think they may hold on a little bit longer, but I think by the end of the year we're gonna see the stock market go. And I think
Mm-hmm.
when the stock market goes, I mean, you got the guy from The Big Short who just shorted $1.6 billion on the stock
Yeah,
market.
against the S&P 500, that was crazy.
So I know a day trader at the club who was telling me like he trades commodities and stuff, and he said all of his buddies on Wall Street are now shorting CMBS, like commercial mortgages, commercial backed securities.
Oh, it's
So
a good play.
they're shorting them, and he said he started selling a lot of his long positions in the stock market and stuff like that, and he's holding back. I mean, you can't time this shit, but like I think it's gonna happen.
There are some signs. Yeah, there are some signs. Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. The guy from The Big Short taking a massive short against the S&P 500. I thought that was interesting.
So like, what do you do with your money then?
I
And
also exactly, and that's something I've seen Sean Terry posting. There's like an insane amount of cash, which is funny. It's
sitting
like
on the sidelines.
I don't want to say herd mentality, but like I pulled out of my stocks this week too, just because I was like,
I had
what? Which
yeah,
my blue chip one was Tesla because I love, which I
right.
still
You
love.
got to get out of that.
But I was like, what? This is like, it's like over 2x since I bought it like a few years ago. I'm like, I'm going to get out of it. And I'd rather just
Secure
hold
your
on.
gains. Yeah.
Yeah.
I told, I'm not a financial advisor by any means, but I was talking to my mom. I had my mom pull out all of her stuff. I mean, she's older, you know what I mean? And like
Mhm.
she can't recover like you could
Mhm.
or I could with years to retirement. So like, and I sent it to my aunts and my uncles and was like, here's what I think. Here's some stuff like long duration bonds are good. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but you know what else I think is good? Mobile home parks.
Mhm.
It's
We'll
like
put that across the bottom of the screen.
mobile home
Yeah.
parks, bro. Like, think about it. You go buy an asset, it's cash flowing to you at like 8, 9%, maybe double digits, depending on the deal. Maybe you, as the investor, as the LP, is getting 8 to 10% every month on your money.
Mhm.
And you don't have to worry about what's happening because mobile homes are resistant to recession, not recession proof, but more resistant. We're the most affordable housing. We are the affordable housing that everyone talks about.
Mhm.
So, like, what do you do? And that's why I'm trying to put my money, my family's money into mobile home parks and other people's money too. I think that's a solid play.
Yeah, I think you're positioning it really well.
versus the stocks. I was talking to a buddy of mine who we started wholesaling, and I was like, man, like he has this piece of property. I'm like, man, I don't know a lot of builders. Like a lot of the builders I know even around town, because I was selling a lot, and I found one builder to buy a lot for me the other month that I was wholesaling down the road from my office, and he bought it because he's trying to break into the game. So he bought it as his first spec house. Hopefully he gets it done in time. But every other builder was like cold feet, didn't want to pull the trigger. I told this wholesaler that, and he goes, hey, bro, like, why do you sound like this? What are you talking about? The market is great. I haven't heard anybody saying they're worried about what's going to happen to the economy. Housing is just going to keep going up, man. What are you talking about builders slowing down? And I'm like, bro, like, I'm not a builder. I don't flip anymore. Like, I don't know. I'm just telling you what I heard from people who are actually have the money, that like their own money. They're slowing some shit down and seeing what happens. Like, man, you sound like this is like early 2022 talking, man. And that never happened. No one's saying that. I'm like, all right, bro, like, keep wholesaling, dude. Like, you keep doing you, but I'm telling you, people are saying this shit.
Yeah, I forget what it. I was watching. I watched. We both watch so much like random YouTube and
Yeah,
podcast stuff. Which Andy Frisella is the absolute man.
I love him.
I've watched a lot of Andy
I love him.
Frisella while I'm just like laid up when I was doing like the knee exercise in my room. I love how much he's into like vision board, law of attraction stuff,
Yeah.
but he's like a typical like, or he's more of like an alpha guy that you wouldn't think is like into that, but he's totally into that. Anyway, I was watching one real estate thing that was also talking about the it's apparently a more accurate indication of home values, where instead of just the dollar amount and the purchasing power of the current interest rate is also taking effect. It's also taking in effect how strong the dollar is versus other currencies. So essentially, what it's saying, even if houses are staying roughly around like this, they've been staying around the same price now the last like 6 months, they're actually going down because it takes more buying power to buy them, and also the value of the dollar is going down. So it's actually saying like the real estate, it hasn't been as solidly held up in value the last 6 months as it may look if you're just looking like price to price. If you're just like running comps on properties, like if you see a house that was 400 grand in December versus the same house is 400 grand now, it's not an apples to apples comparison.
Listen, I agree with you. I think there are, like, just looking at my local market, not even talking about like what I'm wholesaling or like what I'm looking at, right? I'm just saying,
Mhm.
looking at the markets that I keep in tune with. So some North Carolina mountain houses that I'm like, I fucking those things every day. And then my local market. There are certain things that are still selling, right? And like, that lake area in my neighborhood, those things are still selling, but I have seen multiple homes around that area that are just sitting.
Mhm.
Price cuts, price cuts, price cuts. The bigger, more expensive ones, they're price cutting. They're not selling, they're not moving, they're sitting on the market. But at the same time, I saw one in like what was it, almost 400K, gone, just off the market. And it was in the lake area, like it was just an ideal house situation, location, sold,
Mhm.
gone. But everything else I've seen sit. I've seen a lot of lake houses and stuff up in like the western North Carolina areas that everyone used to love for Airbnbs and all that. I've told you I've seen Airbnbs sitting on the market trying to sell. I've seen a lot of lake houses sitting on the market selling. I see cracks, man. I see cracks. So I agree with you. I think although it looks like it, because you can always find comps for whatever you're looking for, right? Like it's
Right.
not
Oh
hard
yeah.
to find.
You can always find comps that play to your advantage. Or same thing
Yeah.
with like data for like scientific studies.
Bias confirmation, right? Like you're
Yeah.
looking for a certain answer, you can find that answer.
Mhm.
Um, I see cracks. I don't know. And that's why I like mobile home parks. And that's why I'm sticking with what I do.
Hey, I hear you, man. Excited to hear about how that deal goes down. The update on the deal last week. Anything to close out on for this week?
Just keep pushing, man. That's it.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing. Firm believer things happen the way they're supposed to happen. I'm just waiting for the parks. You got to look at a lot of them, though. I'm looking at so many parks. I got a call with a guy, with Alex, in a little bit. He sent me a park in North Carolina. I want to talk to him. He wanted me to help value it. I'm just helping people value parks. The more I look at, the better opportunities you have. So
I'm
just
with
keep
you.
look at as many deals as possible in this market. I think you got to do as much as possible.
I'm with you.
What about you? Any closing thoughts on your end?
Man, I don't know. A lot of it's been the same, but I kind of like your vibe of staying consistent in, like Tony Robbins calls it, like cutting stones. Like you're gonna do a little bit of cutting a stone, like trying to shape a boulder or something each day. You can take consistent action every day, but you may not see like the tangible results
Yeah,
until maybe like day 30, day 90, day 180. You have a big crack in it, and you're like, oh my god, like all that work actually
I know.
came to fruition of something. So I'm with you on that message. Whether it's underwriting commercial deals or park deals, whatever. Whether it's your follow up calls you're doing, whether it's meeting with your team or whatever, keep at it, man. Stay
Yeah,
consistent.
I hear that. I hear that. All right, man. Well, that's it for today. If you liked our episode, please hit the like and subscribe button and tune in next week for more information on Let's Talk Real Estate and Stuff. Lock and load.
Love it. Have a good one, guys.